You wake slowly, as if your mind has been asleep for centuries. The air smells of damp straw and cold ash. Your cheek presses against a wool blanket stiff with use, scratchy as old bark. Somewhere nearby, a pot drips. Drip, drip. Not fast enough to be a leak, just enough to remind you that the roof doesn't quite hold. It's morning, but the sun hasn't shown itself yet. The light through the wooden slats is soft, the color of dust. You are not alone in this room. There's a heavy shape beside you, snoring through a nose that broke years ago and never quite healed right. His breath smells of onions and last night's ale, and you try not to breathe too deeply. You don't move. Not yet. You listen. A dog outside begins to bark at nothing. Just the morning wind, or a ghost of last year's harvest. You hear it in the distance, too, the windmill groaning, like an old woman remembering how to cry. The village is waking, but no one is in a hurry. It is not a world that rewards haste. Your bones ache from the chill, but you stay still. There is something inside you that does not want to begin the day. And quietly, without trying, you remember the question. What if history erased you? Not your name, that's already gone. Your name never made it past the parish records, and even those were eaten by mice. No, you, the life you had, the hundreds of days that blurred together, shaped by hunger, silence, childbirth, and prayers that went unanswered. You reach for a memory, and it comes back slowly, like soup gone cold. You are someone's wife, that much you remember. And that, more than the plague, more than the hunger, more than the wolves or war or the nights you thought the sky itself might fall, that title, wife, is the thing that frightened you most. No one warned you, not really. They called it settling down, as if marriage were a blanket and not a noose made of duty. You were told he'd be a provider. They didn't say what he'd provide. Turns out the answer was fear. You close your eyes again. Welcome. You are home. This is England, sometime in the 1300s, though you can't read a calendar and no one says the years out loud unless they're counting their losses. You live in a stone house with a roof made of thatch, and depending on the season, it either leaks or it burns, sometimes both. You sleep beside your husband, your children, and the lice you cannot get rid of. You share a chamber pot and your prayers with equal futility. The air in here always smells of meat that's long gone. The floor is packed dirt. There is no glass in the windows, just oiled linen, yellowed and stiff like the skin on old stew. If you're lucky, the rats only come when there's cheese. Outside, the village is built around silence. Silence after work, silence after birth, silence after beatings. No one talks about what happens inside homes. The thatched roof is like a secret. It holds everything in, even when it shouldn't. Your feet slide from the blanket, touching the cold dirt floor. It hurts, the way a forgotten bruise does. Quiet but sharp. You wince. But quietly. Always quietly. Your husband is still asleep, one hand on his stomach like he's guarding something. He doesn't stir. He never does in the morning. He saves his strength for the night. You wrap your shawl around your shoulders. The wool is coarse, made from the sheep you help shear each spring. Your hands still remember the way the blade slipped. You still have the scar near your thumb, though no one ever asked how you got it. You step outside. The sky is heavy with mist, the kind that blurs the line between morning and memory. The fields beyond the village stretch like tired arms, too wide to till, too thin to feed. You think of last year's harvest. Barley mostly. Not enough.
You remember the hunger in your children's eyes, the way they looked at you as if you had failed to summon bread from your bones. And maybe you did. You gave them everything you had, and it still wasn't enough. There is mud between your toes. The pigs are awake, snorting in their pen. One of them looks up at you like he knows. They always do. Pigs are smarter than people think. Sometimes you think they're smarter than your husband, but you don't say that out loud. Not even in your head. Thoughts like that have teeth. You go to the well hoping the water isn't frozen. You remember when you first came here, carrying buckets with girlish arms. You had believed what the priest told you, that marriage was sacred, a bond of love, a protection. You hadn't realized that protection meant obedience, that love meant quiet, that sacred meant you couldn't leave. Even now, you don't think of leaving. Where would you go? The forest is dark and full of men who don't ask your name before taking what they want. The village would never take you back. Your father is too old, and your brother's wife never liked you. You have no coin, no horse, and no hope. Only a cold jug of water and a spine that still aches from your last childbirth. You wonder if the plague would have been kinder. It came through last winter, took the baker's wife and 3 of the miller's sons. Your neighbor, too. She had screamed for hours before the end. People said she was cursed, but you knew better. She'd spoken back to her husband the week before. You walk back to the house, slowly. The mist clings to your sleeves. A rooster crows, too early and too proud. A child coughs behind a wall. Somewhere, someone is praying again. Prayers here are like dry bread, hard to chew, but still something to hold. The door creaks as you return. Inside, it's warmer now. The fire has stirred itself into a small flame. Your youngest is awake, thumb in mouth, watching you with wide eyes. You kiss his forehead. Your husband stirs. You hold your breath, but he only grunts and turns. You let the breath go, slow and silent, like everything else. You ladle what's left of last night's stew into a wooden bowl, mostly turnip and hope. No one speaks as they eat. The sounds of chewing and slurping are familiar, like the ticking of a clock you never had. Later, you will sweep the floor, stitch the same tear in your husband's tunic, feed the animals, mourn in silence for the life you thought you'd have, the one with a softer man, or maybe just no man at all. Because here, in this world, husbands are not companions, they are storms. And you are the thatch roof, praying to hold. Sleep now. Let the mist wrap around you again. This day is not yet done, and neither are you.
You wake again, but time feels strange. Hours may have passed, or none at all. The lull of the house is familiar. The embers in the hearth, the hush in the rafters, the steady breathing of your family. The day stretches in front of you like a bruise, swelling and soft. You stand slowly, mindful of the child stirring. His thumb slips from his mouth, and his gaze follows you. You give him a small nod, and he lies still again. In his eyes you see a spark of something you like to think is hope, though you can't remember when you last felt it. Outside, the mist has lifted. The sky is a pale promise. The sun tries, but today is overcast, an even light that reveals every crack in the walls, every patch in the roof. It's better this way. Light makes things too clear. You slip on your woolen shoes, soft leather that's been mended too many times. The cobbles welcome you with a cold kiss. There are chores ahead. Feed the chickens, check on the goats, haul water for the dyeing of cloth later this afternoon. It's unending, ordinary work. They say it keeps a person grounded. You wonder if it keeps you trapped. The chickens cluster around your feet, clucking with hope. You toss them corn. One of them tries to challenge you, ruffling feathers as if declaring, "I'm the queen here." You offer a wry smile. You versus the hen, humble. It makes your heart lighten just a fraction. Later, while you draw water from the communal well, you watch the village. Men move with flat shoulders and quiet mouths. They do the work in unison, unaware of the rhythm. Women gather hush quietly to gossip, softer than a stolen breath. Children play in puddles, knee-deep in ignorance of what will come. You wonder, is it always this way? Or did the world shrink so small you forgot the edges? You carry the pail home, water sloshing like jailers in a damp cell. Your daughter, older and leaner than you remember, stands by the door. She takes the water with a careful nod. No words. Words here are too dangerous. You go inside and your husband is there. He is cleaning his tools in a black metal tray. The light from the window traces grooves in his forehead. He doesn't look up. He never looks up unless he wants something. A frown tugs at your heart, though you tell yourself it's only exhaustion. Maybe his, maybe yours. The tools clink. The sound rises, sharp among softer noises. You begin to wash dishes, the water turning cloudy with meal. You wonder what happened to him yesterday, or last week, or maybe never. You cannot tell anymore where time begins or ends. Outside, a rooster reminds the world that time moves. Inside, you sweep again. Sweep the dirt into a corner where the wind won't reach it. Life is a series of corners where you hide what you cannot change. Midday arrives, the smell of boiling dye fills the room where you work, where cloth is soaked and stirred until its color bleeds into shapes you cannot predict. You dip your hands into anthra-shifted water, fingers stained dark, pressing fabric, smoothing folds. This is your art, though no one calls it that. It's just chores, money for bread. As you hang the cloth on lines, the misty air makes the colors muted, sleepy soft, blue-gray like the sky before rain, yellow-brown like a tired sun. The day stretches lazily, eyelids half closed. You pause. Someone is at the gate. A traveler, a man you've never seen. His cloak is dusty, patched. He carries a staff, but his shoulders are smooth, no scars from battle. He doesn't walk like a soldier, more like a traveler seeking direction. He hesitates by the gate, watching. You hold your breath. He approaches, but when he speaks, his voice is gentle. "Pardon, madam, I seek your husband." You feel your heart twist. You do not want to see him, but you say, calmly, "He's in the back field, resting by the oak." You speak softly, as if your voice might start a fire, but this fire would burn your world to ash. The traveler thanks you, his eyes flicking from your face to the house. There is something curious there, a sparkle of concern or pity. You drop your gaze. He moves on. Your heart pounds. He goes to your husband. They talk. From where you stand, you hear only the low hum of voices, no threat. But your breath feels brittle, like dried grass. Later, you see them walk back. Your husband leads the traveler through the yard.
You stand by the door, hands clasped before you. The traveler smiles once, nods at you, then leaves, with nothing more than a bow. You watch him go, wondering what he wanted. The men's silent figures shrink and fade into the hedge. Wind rustles the leaves. No answers here. Your husband enters the house, kicks off muddy boots, drops his cloak. He doesn't look at you. He doesn't say anything of interest. Instead, he goes to the fire, picks up a piece of charcoal, and lets it smolder. He looks at it. He draws a deep line in the hearth's edge, like he's measuring something. Your hands itch with questions, but you stay still. This is marriage, maybe. Quiet storms you don't understand. You take your child in your arms, rock her gently. She yawns. Her hair smells of flax and powder. She is gentle. Everything you wanted her to be. Yet you cannot stop the questions. Why did the traveler come? Why did your husband speak to him in the field? What does he hide? Evening comes. A feeble sun leans behind clouds. The sky makes a pale shadow of itself. You prepare tonight's meal. A thin broth of onion and barley with stale bread torn apart and warmed over coals. You feed your daughter first, then your younger son, then your husband. He eats in silence. You watch him, studying his face. You trace the scar from your own hands, remembering how the blade slipped. That scar saved your life, but it cost you something else. You wonder if he knows why you wear it, or if he even thinks about it. The children finish eating. You take their bowls, rinse them, and set them by the hearth. Then you wait. Your husband stands. He wipes his mouth. You can sense his words coming, but you are not sure you want to hear them. He says quietly, "That traveler, he was looking for a man, not me." You stir the ashes with your foot. You say nothing. He continues, "He's a chronicler. He tracks men like me." Your heart shrinks, confused. A chronicler? Someone who writes? No one writes here, not in this village. Your husband doesn't know words the way scribes do. He frowns, looks away. You wait. He finally says, "He asked where I got my armor." Armor. You blink. You think of the thin steel plate he wears, scratched, dented, never seen in public. The one he wears in the evenings covered by his cloak. You thought it was for when wolves came, or when the Englishmen came. He says, "I told him it was my brother's. He died." Your hands go cold. A brother. A story. Not true, you think. He has no brother. You were married for 11 years. You have seen all the gaps in his past. Something is off. And here it is again. The silence after his words. A silence that fills the room with a question you can't swallow. Night falls. You lift the covers in the bed. The smell of dust and sweat greets you. Your husband lies down before you, face hidden in shadow. You slip in beside him. He doesn't reach for you. You don't reach for him. You let the dark cover you both. You wonder, what stories does he hide? What secrets in his coat? What lies to the chronicler? But you must sleep. You close your eyes, tracing the lines of the day. The traveler's cloak, your husband's distant look, the armor that doesn't belong to him, the question left unsaid. Sleep now. Let the quiet flow over you. The day has passed, and tomorrow the story continues.
You dream of armor, not shining, not heroic, just metal, cold and dented, leaning in the corner of a smoke-stained room. It smells of rust and old blood. No light glints from it. It is not a knight's armor. It is not for glory. It is not for show. You wake to the sound of wind against the shutters. The fire has died to ashes, and the room is cold again. Your husband lies still, facing the wall. His back looks like the edge of a cliff, silent, sharp, and too far to reach. You don't speak. You never speak first. You rise and wrap yourself in the same shawl you wore yesterday and the day before. The fabric holds your shape now. Its folds remember you, even when others don't. Outside, the sky is the color of wet linen. Everything is gray and tired. The air smells like the in-between space after rain, before rot. You feed the pigs again. One of them eyes you, same as yesterday, same as always. That strange pig-like understanding. You mutter under your breath. At least you don't pretend. You don't know why you said it out loud. Maybe because you haven't said anything else all morning. The village is quieter today. Even the hens seem subdued. A cart rolls past, its wooden wheels groaning like old bones. 2 children run behind it, chasing a wooden hoop. Their laughter cuts the silence, but no one smiles. It isn't safe to smile too often. People start to notice. The dyeing work is slow. You soak the cloth in madder root today. It stains your fingers red, like tiny blood rivers. You pause at the water's edge, watching the reflection. You barely recognize yourself. Your face has become the shape of waiting. Your daughter stands behind you, waiting for instructions. She doesn't ask questions. She knows better. You used to ask questions. That was before you learned that the answers don't change anything. Later that day, the traveler returns. This time, he doesn't come to the gate. He stands at the road's edge, as if deciding to whether to pass through again. You watch from the window, pretending to stir the soup pot. He doesn't approach. You wonder, is he afraid? Or does he know more than he lets on? Your husband isn't home. He's gone to the tanner's shed. He goes there often these days. You don't know why. He says it's to trade. You've never seen what he brings back. The traveler turns, and you see his face clearly. Tired. Not old, but worn. Worn in the way only those who carry stories become. You blink, and he's already walking away again. Not back the way he came, just away. Something stirs in your chest, and it isn't hope. Hope died the first year of your marriage. This is something colder. You don't know his name, but you know he knows something. Maybe about the armor. Maybe about your husband. Maybe even about you. You stir the soup. It smells thin and sad. That evening, when your husband returns, you don't ask him anything. He hands you a bundle of cloth, dyed, deep green, expensive. He says, "For the feast." You nod, though you didn't know there was a feast. He doesn't explain, just sits down, stares into the fire like he's counting regrets. You study the cloth after he sleeps. It's too fine, not local. Someone brought this from a city. You know it by the weave, tight, even, not like village work. You hold it to your cheek. It feels like a lie. That night, you lie awake. The room is dark, but your thoughts are louder than usual. The armor, the chronicler, the sudden green cloth.
And a memory returns. A market day years ago, you were still a girl. You saw a man with armor like that. Not polished, not rich, just functional, fastened with leather ties and patched with cloth. He wasn't a knight. He was a runner, a kind of soldier used by lords to deliver messages or carry out less honorable tasks. You hadn't thought of that day in years. You only remembered because that man had a scar just like your husband's. You breathe in slowly. The walls feel smaller tonight. The air feels thicker. You turn on your side and wonder, what if your husband wasn't always a husband? What if this house, this life, was built on something buried? Outside, the wind picks up again. You pull the blanket to your chin. Sleep. The story waits, but not forever.
The dreams return before morning. You see a field, flat, gray, endless. Not a plowed field, a field after battle. No bodies, just the echo of violence. Helmets left behind like broken thoughts. A boot, a bent arrow, a single glove, the color of your husband's eyes. You wake cold, not from the air, but from something beneath it. The room is dark, except for the faintest blue slipping through the cracks in the wall. Everyone still sleeps. Even the baby doesn't stir. You rise without a sound, wrap your shawl, and step outside into the early hush. The earth is wet, not from rain, just the kind of damp that lives in the bones of the village. You walk past the animals, past the well, toward the outer edge of the field. Something is pulling you today. Not a voice, just a sense, the kind mothers get when their children are too quiet. The wind moves through the grass like it knows something. You find the oak, the one your husband likes. It leans slightly east like it's tired of standing. Beneath it, a small dugout hollow, still raw with turned earth. You stare at it, unsure. A rabbit burrow? No, too shallow, too deliberate. You kneel, press your hand to the dirt. It's been covered quickly, sloppily. You brush it aside and see something metallic. Not shining, just there. You uncover a piece of armor, a chest plate, not new, not ornamental, same as the one by your husband's cot, but this one is scorched, burned at the edges. You cover it again, slowly, not because you're afraid, but because you're starting to understand something. You walk back to the house, but the world feels further away. Your husband doesn't ask where you've been. He never does. But that morning, when he sits at the table, his eyes linger on you a beat longer than usual. You don't meet them. Instead, you stir the oats, place the bowls, and pretend not to think. He says, "You should sew that new cloth today for the feast." You nod. You will. But your hands shake a little when you cut the fabric. It frays too easily, like it wasn't meant to last. At midday, your daughter comes running. She doesn't usually run. She's learned the village rule. Don't draw eyes. But today, her cheeks are red and breathless. "Mother," she whispers. "He's back." You don't ask who. You already know. The chronicler. You walk to the village edge.
The men are gathered near the tannery, pretending not to look, but their eyes flick, always flick. The traveler stands at the road again, cloak pulled close. This time he has a satchel, a thick one, full of parchment or secrets. Maybe both. He sees you. He nods, but doesn't smile. You walk over. He speaks softly. "I won't stay long, just passing through. Thought I'd ask again." You don't say anything. You just wait. He says, "The man you live with, he's not who he says." Still, you wait. He says, "He was in France during the siege. He wore no banner, just iron." You feel your breath change. Not stop, just shift. "I'm not here to expose him, only to remember the ones who were forgotten." You finally ask, "Why?" His answer is simple, "Because no one else will." That night, after supper, you watch your husband by the fire. His face is unreadable. Not cruel, not kind, just a wall that's forgotten what it's hiding. He senses your gaze, says nothing. But you think, what if he came here to disappear? And what if you did too? You reach for your daughter's hand, hold it softly. She looks up at you with sleep-heavy eyes. You nod to her. Time for bed. Later, as the fire dies, you lie beside your husband. You do not touch, but you speak for the first time in days. You buried something by the oak. A pause. His breath holds. Then he says, "Only what I couldn't carry anymore. No anger. Just that." You don't reply. There is no need. Outside, the stars blink like old memories. The village is quiet. The chronicler is gone. But he left something behind, a truth that won't stay buried. And you fall asleep next to a man you do not know. But maybe that's always been true. Let sleep take you. We'll return to the story soon.
You wake before dawn. There's a stillness in the room, different than usual, not peaceful, just waiting. You lie still for a while, eyes open in the dark, staring at the rafters. The wood above your head is cracked, knotted, older than you. It remembers winters you don't, famines you never named. You wonder if it remembers kindness too. Beside you, your husband doesn't move. His breath is steady, but his face is turned toward the wall, always the wall. You rise. The floor is cold and your feet find the same grooves worn by years of walking this path, bed to hearth, hearth to door, door to field. Every step shaped by habit, not hope. Outside, the sky is still asleep. You light the fire and feed it slowly, as though waking an animal that bites. Your daughter joins you, rubbing her eyes. She sits without a word, watching the flames. She doesn't ask what's for breakfast. She knows the answer is always the same, what we have or what we can stretch. The day is long. You sew. The feast is 2 days away, and your dress must be ready. You press needle through cloth again and again until your hands feel like tools. Your husband is gone most of the day. You do not ask where. No one asks men where they go. They return with silence or bruises, and you accept both. But you think of the oak, of the buried armor, of the chronicler's eyes when he said he wore no banner. You're in the garden when he returns, dusk and the shadows lean long across the soil. He carries a basket, empty but damp. You can smell fish even though there is none left. You greet him with a glance, nothing more. He nods once. It is the closest you come to a conversation. That night, the soup is thinner than usual. The baby eats first, then the rest. He says, "The feast will be large. There's talk of the Lord sending someone." You look at him. A noble? Not a true one, just a cousin, here to inspect land. He stirs his bowl slowly. You wait. Then quietly he adds, "If they see me, they might remember." And there it is, the first crack in the wall. After the children sleep, you remain at the fire spinning thread. He sits across from you, sharpening a knife. The sound is soft, stone on blade, a lullaby of sorts. You ask, without looking up, "What did you do?" Silence. Then he says, "I survived." You nod. Once. He continues, "I sent us across the channel. Promised coin, promised land. All lies. We were there to burn, to take, to die." You set down your thread. He says, "I carried messages, then bodies, then blades." You ask, "And when did you stop?" He looks at the fire. "When I stopped caring who we killed." You both sit for a long time. The fire sinks lower. The air grows cold. Then he says something strange. "I thought if I married, I could forget." You don't answer, because you understand. Marriage was never about love here. It was about hiding in plain sight. You in the kitchen, him in the fields, two ghosts haunting the same roof. But tonight, there is no armor between you. Just a worn shawl, a fire, two people who once hoped to be saved. You lie in bed facing him. He says softly, "If they ask who I am, say you don't know." You nod, because it's true. But maybe, just maybe, you're starting to learn. The wind stirs outside. The trees whisper things no one dares say. You drift off, wrapped in the quiet, in the unraveling of lies, in the fragile thread of truth. Sleep now. The feast is coming, and so are the memories.
The morning before the feast is colder than it should be. You feel it in your teeth when you breathe, that metallic taste of cold. The hearth fire took too long to catch, and your hands are stiff from the wet wood. The ash clings to your skirts, to your skin, to your thoughts. Your husband is already gone. You didn't hear him leave. He moves like a man who's already halfway elsewhere. You dress the children slowly. Your daughter wears her braid tight today, as you taught her. If you look put together, people don't ask questions, you once told her. You didn't say what kind of questions. She understood, anyway. You wear the new dress, the one made from the fine green cloth. It fits too well, as if it belonged to someone else once. You don't feel proud, just prepared. The village buzzes like a hive that's lost its queen. Everyone moves faster, speaks quieter. The Lord's cousin is arriving by midday. No one knows what he wants. Land inspection, they say. Tax reports, maybe conscription. No one says blood. but the word hovers unsaid like smoke. You pass the baker. He's trimmed his beard. The miller's wife has set out flowers. Even the church doors have been washed. It all feels like dressing a wound and hoping no one notices the limp. Your husband returns near noon. His hands are clean, too clean. You wonder what he buried this time. You stand together near the edge of the gathering crowd. He keeps to your side, but you do not touch. A small procession arrives. Horses, banners. Not grand, just official. Enough to remind you who owns the land your house sits on. The noble cousin dismounts. He is young, too young. His clothes are soft, skin softer. He walks with the slow confidence of someone who has never feared hunger. He smiles too easily, as if the world has never told him no. He speaks to the reeve, then the priest. His eyes pass over the crowd, lightly, politely. Then they land on your husband and pause. It's not long, a blink, less, but you see it. Recognition. Your stomach tightens like a rope soaked in cold water. Nothing is said. Not then, not there. But that night, after the feast, after the stale bread, the dry meat, the songs sung off-key, your husband does not speak. He walks home ahead of you. At the threshold, he turns and says, he knew. You ask, what will happen? He answers, nothing, unless he returns with names. Later, as the children sleep, he opens the small box you've never seen him open. Inside, a folded parchment, a torn badge, a coin with a foreign king's face, things no one here would recognize, things that do not belong in this house, this life. He hands them to you. If I'm taken, he says, burn these. Say I was no one. You nod, because you've been no one for years, but suddenly it feels like a shield. You sleep that night beside him, not close, not far, the kind of closeness that doesn't ask questions. You dream of the oak again, but this time it isn't a hiding place. It's a grave, and something waits there still. Let the dark cover you now. The feast is over, but the past is not. Sleep. The silence holds your name, even if history won't.
You wake to birdsong. Not the cheerful kind, just the usual kind. Sharp, repetitive, indifferent. The birds here don't sing for joy. They sing because it's morning, and they're alive. That's enough. You lie in bed longer than usual, listening. There's no sound of your husband moving, no creak of the door, no cough. You turn your head. The bed is empty. The fire is out. The corner where his boots rest is bare. You rise slowly, wrapping your shawl without thought. Your fingers remember the motions, even when your mind does not. Outside, the light is gray and uncertain. A fog has rolled in, thick and lazy. The village looks like it's holding its breath. At the well, you hear voices, low, cautious. Men talking with their heads leaned in.
You don't go closer. You don't need to. You've lived long enough to know what that tone means. Something has changed. By mid-morning, word comes. The noble is still here. He never left. He stayed the night at the Reeves house. He wants to speak to certain men. No names, just the kind of request that's more command than question. You keep your hands busy, mending, stirring, sweeping the same square of floor. But your thoughts run loose, faster than you want. You remember the look that passed between them, your husband and that man with silk at his collar. You remember the things in the box. You remember how he said burn them. You remember how he said if. But you know that if is getting smaller by the hour. By evening, he still hasn't returned. Your daughter watches the door, pretending not to. You light the fire. You serve the soup. You kiss your son's forehead. And still the door does not open. You wake in the dark again. This time not from dreams, from movement. He is back. You hear him sit by the hearth, not hiding, just heavy. You don't speak. You just wait. Finally, he says, he knows everything. You wait again. Then he says, but he asked for silence in return for a favor. You blink into the dark. What favor? He doesn't answer right away. The firelight flickers against the wall, shaping shadows into broken promises. Then he says, he wants a name. You close your eyes. Of course he does. This is how power works here. It doesn't punish everyone. It punishes one. Just enough to remind the rest. Someone will be named. Someone will be taken. And it may not be your husband. Because sometimes the past is more useful than the truth. You lie back down. The blanket covers you, but not your thoughts. What name will he give? What debt is being paid? And what would you do if he said yours? Sleep comes in pieces, thin, brittle pieces. You dream of the chronicler. Only this time, he's not asking questions. He's writing. And as you draw near, you see he's not writing about your husband. He's writing about you. But your name is spelled wrong. And your story doesn't end the way you lived it. Let go now. The page is still turning. And tomorrow, someone else's name might be on it. Sleep. The silence still keeps your secret. For now.
Morning doesn't arrive with light. It arrives with footsteps. You hear them before you open your eyes, soft, careful, deliberate, moving past your window, down the path, toward the chapel. Then others. More feet. No words. Just that slow shuffle of people pretending they don't know what they're walking toward. You dress in silence. Your husband is already gone again. Not even the bed remembers him now. Outside, the fog hasn't lifted. It presses low across the fields like a tired sigh. Even the chickens are quiet today. You carry water, though you don't need to. You carry it because it gives you a reason to walk, to listen, to pass near the chapel where the village gathers. They're not holding a trial. There are no trials here. Only conversations behind closed doors and decisions made before anyone speaks. You hear murmurs. The noble cousin is there, so is the priest, the reeve, a few men with pressed lips and hands too clean to be trusted. Your husband is not among them, but someone else is.
you see the cooper, old, bent, nearly blind, standing by the chapel door. They say his son fled the king's levy last spring. No one's seen him since. A woman you barely know clutches her apron near her chest. Her brother served in France, same as your husband. You remember now. He never returned. Everyone here has someone they could give. Everyone has someone they'd rather keep. By dusk, it's decided. You don't hear the words, you don't need to. The noble leaves with one of the Reeves men. The name chosen is not your husband's. It's the cooper's son. But the cooper is too old to protest, and the son, wherever he is too far to save. That night, you sew in silence. The fire burns low. Your daughter watches you from across the room. Her eyes are older than they were yesterday. Your husband sits on his stool, sharpening a blade again. You don't ask where he was. You don't ask what he gave. But you feel the air change between you. Not warmer, not colder, just heavier. As if both of you are carrying something the other dare not name. Later, when the children sleep, he speaks. They asked about my past. I told them nothing. You look up from your thread. I offered another name. Your hand stills. He says, one they already suspected. It made no difference. You wait, then ask, did you feel anything? He doesn't answer. And in the silence, you realize he doesn't know. Or maybe he does, and that's worse. That night, you dream again, but not of him. You dream of a woman walking a field, holding nothing but a shawl and a name she no longer claims. She walks and walks until the village behind her fades to mist, and still she walks toward no one. Sleep now. There is no trial in the morning, only quiet and choices already made.
The danger is gone. At least, that's what they say. The noble cousin has returned to his estate with his fine horse and his finer silence. He took a name with him, but not yours, not your husband's. The village exhales, but not in relief, just in habit. Like it always does after storms it couldn't stop. You go about your days, stir the porridge, sweep the floors, feed the pigs who never stop staring. You hold your children close at night, but not tightly. Love, here, is cautious. It has to be. Too much of it and you start to notice what's missing, what never was, what should have been. Your husband speaks more now. Not much, but more. He asks if there is enough salt for winter, if the chickens are laying, if the cloth merchant will return before snow. You answer each question with a nod or a word, but you don't ask your own. He doesn't tell you why he gave that name, or how he knew they'd accept it. He doesn't say whether he feels guilt. And you don't ask, because that would open a door neither of you has the strength to walk through. You go to the market one day, trade eggs for dried herbs, a bit of lard, a comb for your daughter, too delicate for your life. On the way home, you pass the cooper's house. He's sitting outside, carving something into the wood post. You can't tell what it is. A mark? A name? A memory? You don't stop, but something in you wishes you did. That evening you mend your husband's shirt, the one with the worn cuffs and the patch near the chest. You run your fingers over the stitch line. It's crooked, always has been.
You never learned to sew straight, but you learned to survive, and that's different. Later, he thanks you for the mending, the meal, the way you don't ask questions. You look at him, and you wonder, is that what you are now? A woman so quiet, even gratitude feels strange? You lie in bed staring at the beams above. They look different now. Not older, just emptier. Like they're waiting for something to fill them. You think about the name he gave, the man who will be blamed, the man who may already be dead. You ask yourself if it matters. You don't like your answer. Sleep comes late, and when it does, it isn't soft. You dream of parchment, of someone writing your story, but skipping all the parts where you chose to look away. And when you wake, your first thought isn't fear. It's this. What would you have done if it were your name they asked for? You don't know. You might never know. But silence always has a cost. And now you've started counting. Sleep now. The fire is low. The questions don't need answers tonight. They only need room.
You're in the garden when the boy arrives. A village boy, maybe 12, one of the Mason's brood. He's dirty, nose running, eyes wide with the weight of something he doesn't understand. He holds out a folded paper, crumpled but sealed. You wipe your hands on your apron and cake it. You nod your thanks, and he runs off, as if carrying words has made him older. You've never received a letter before. Not really. Not one written to you. Your husband gets messages sometimes, from traders, once from a man with a missing tooth who claimed to remember him from Calais, but never you. Never your name. You turn the letter over. There's no name on the outside, just a seal. Wax, greenish, pressed with something you don't recognize. You open it slowly, expecting to feel nothing, but inside, words. Words that know you. It's from your sister. You'd forgotten she could write. You hadn't seen her in 7 winters, not since your mother's funeral. You'd both cried then, but differently. She cried for loss. You cried for what would never come again. A home, a second chance, an escape. Her letter is short, careful. She says she's married now. To a tradesman. They live near the coast. She heard a nobleman pass through your village. She heard a name was given. She doesn't say how she knows. She only writes, I hope it wasn't him. And then, if you ever need to leave, come. You have a place here. You fold the letter 3 times, not because it's long, but because it says too much. That night, you don't mention it. Your husband eats in silence. The stew is too thin. The salt is low. The day was hard. You watch him chew, and you remember the seal. You remember how her handwriting curved around the word hope. You wonder what it feels like to have that still. Later, in bed, you lie facing away from him. You think of the sea, of her kitchen, of a house that doesn't smell like old blood and boiled turnips. You think, I could go. Not as a threat, not as a plan, just as a fact. Like the weather, like the hunger, like the weight you've carried for so long that your spine bent without you noticing. In your sleep, you walk toward the shore. The waves aren't blue. They're the color of pewter bowls and washed-out wool, but they move, and that's what matters.
You don't run in the dream. You just walk. Each step softer than the last. Sleep now. You haven't decided. You don't need to. But you've remembered something. And that's the first step.
You hold the letter beneath your mattress, folded 3 times, pressed flat. It rustles when you lie down, like a secret breathing under you. You haven't answered it. You haven't burned it. You just let it live there. Quiet, half alive, like so many parts of you. Days pass. The sun rises the same way it always does. The bread burns the same way it always does. Your husband walks with the same limp he's had since the second winter. And still, you carry that letter in your spine. He doesn't ask why you've been quieter. He doesn't notice. Not really. He asks about the cow, the oats, the winter salt. Practical things, safe things. You answer, as you always have, calmly, simply, as if your voice belongs to someone else. But your hands remember. They tremble when you hold the baby. They twist the hem of your apron when you stare out the window too long. Because now there is something else in your world. Choice. One afternoon, your daughter brushes your hair. It's become a ritual, a small moment of softness in a life built from hard edges. She's gentle, careful. She says, "Your hair is turning white just here." She touches the spot behind her ear. You smile. A little. Not because it's funny, but because it means time didn't forget you, even if the world did. That evening, you walk to the edge of the field, not to work, not to gather, just to breathe. The wind smells like ash and green things, old smoke and barley, the smell of a season turning. You stare at the road. It goes 2 ways, one back to the village, one toward the coast. You close your eyes and picture it. Your sister's door, her hand on your arm. A room that doesn't carry the weight of fear in its beams. A night where no one listens for footsteps that don't belong. But then, you picture your daughter, your son. Even him, the man who sleeps beside you with one hand always near a blade. And you ask yourself, what if leaving doesn't save you? What if it just makes you lonely? You walk back as the moon rises, slowly, softly. You tuck the letter back beneath the mattress, but this time, you don't lie on top of it. You leave it uncovered, visible, waiting. Because maybe you are too. Sleep now. The road is still there, and so are you. But for the first time in a long time, you're not just surviving. You're deciding. You begin with the boots. They're tucked near the hearth, cracked and stiff from last year's frost. You mend them with old leather and thread you steal from the hem of your husband's coat. He doesn't notice. You've been invisible long enough to know how to move without leaving tracks. Each night, after the children sleep, you take a few things. Quiet things. A wooden spoon. A string of dried berries. A thimble, round and worn smooth from your mother's hands. Not much,
just enough to remind yourself you still exist. You haven't told your sister you're coming, not yet, not until you're certain you'll go. But her letter lies flat under the mattress, open now, not hidden. And every morning, when you rise, you read the last line again. If you ever need to leave, come. You read it like a prayer, not because you believe in miracles, but because belief is too much to ask. And hope is smaller now, more like breath. You don't leave the village, not yet, but your path to the edge of it becomes more familiar. You stand near the trees, where the last of summer's green clings to the branches. You don't go further, you just look, because sometimes looking is the first act of freedom. And you're not ready for the second, not yet. One evening your husband says, "You've been quiet." You stir the pot. "I've been tired." He nods, not because he understands, but because it's easier to accept than to ask more. And maybe that's always been the root of it, this silence between you, built from years of easier to endure, easier to ignore, easier to forget you once wanted more. That night, you dream of your sister's hands, not her face, not her house, just her hands reaching, pulling yours into hers. And in the dream, you say nothing. You just go. In the morning, you put a bundle beneath the loose stone behind the barn, small, wrapped in cloth, just in case. A start. And for the first time in years, when your husband asks what you're doing, you don't answer. You just smile. And the smile isn't kind. It isn't cruel. It's the shape of someone who finally remembers what choosing feels like. The baby cries. The day begins. The world doesn't change. But you do. Quietly. Softly. Like a tide shifting beneath frozen ground. Sleep now. No one knows yet. But you do. And that's enough. For now.
The morning feels different. The air is heavier, as if the sky forgot how to lift itself. There's no rain, not yet, but the ground squelches beneath your boots like it knows what's coming. You open the door to feed the chickens, and the wind greets you, not cold, not warm, just present. It brushes your face like a thought you don't want to have. You pause at the threshold. The world smells of wet stone and old wood, a smell that lives in places that have seen too much and said too little. You move through your chores with the same rhythm. Pull water from the well, pick herbs from the edge of the garden, check the root cellar. But your hands are slower today, not tired, just listening. Because something has shifted in the quiet. Even the pigs seem to know it. They don't grunt as usual when you pass. They just watch you, that sharp-eyed way they have, like they see who you were before you became this. Your husband is gone, again. No word, no time given. That's not new. But now every absence weighs differently. Not like escape, more like preparation. By midday, you visit the priest's house. Not for confession. You stopped believing that helped years ago. But your daughter needs thread, and the priest's sister keeps a basket of spun linen behind the chapel stove. You knock gently, as always. The sister answers with a kind smile, as always. She moves slowly. Too many years, too many steps, but her eyes are clear. You thank her, take the thread, turn to go. Then pause, because something catches your eye. It's just a paper,
folded, tucked beneath a book, slightly stained, as if someone's hand lingered too long on it, but it bears your husband's name, not addressed to him, about him. You stare. The sister sees your daze, and in that same moment, you both understand. She doesn't stop you. She just nods and walks away. Maybe she was waiting for you to see it. Maybe she doesn't believe in secrets either. You take the letter. You don't open it right away. You wait. You hold it under your shawl like a living thing. Tuck it in your apron as you walk home. Set it beside the hearth while you slice bread for the children. It burns the corner of your vision. It begs to be read. But something inside you isn't ready to see what it says. Because once you know, you can't pretend. And pretending has become your survival. But when the house falls quiet that evening, when your son falls asleep on the floor with his thumb in his mouth, when your daughter finishes brushing your hair and drifts to her straw mattress, when the fire flickers low and the wind no longer knocks, you sit down, you unfold the paper, and you read. It isn't long, a few lines, written by the noble cousin himself, addressed not to the priest, but to his uncle, a bishop. The words are formal, polished, but the message is plain. Confirmed his identity through scars and fragments of armor, known to have served under Lord R during the siege, vanished after the retreat. Resurfaced under false name, married to a villager, unreported. May be a liability. To be observed, not yet acted upon. You read it twice, not because you didn't understand, but because you wished you hadn't. Your husband isn't who he says he is. That you already knew. But now it's not rumor, it's record. And worse, they're watching, waiting. You stare into the fire. Your mouth tastes like dust and ash. Not fear, not yet. Just the beginning of something that has no shape. He returns late, doesn't speak, just hangs his coat, wipes his boots, looks at you once, long, unreadable, and sits. You say nothing. You pour him stew. He eats. The silence between you is louder than before, but not because of the letter, because of everything around it, because of everything that could come next. You don't tell him what you read. Not yet. You just fold the letter again, smooth the crease, and place it beneath the mattress, beside your sister's. 2 letters, 2 lives. One you still live, one you haven't stepped into. Not yet. Later you lie beside him, both of you facing the ceiling, neither of you speaking. You wonder if he suspects you've seen it. You wonder if he cares. You wonder if he's known all along that this would end in running or in ruin. You don't cry. You don't tremble. You just lie there and breathe and think. They know. And now, so do you. You dream of parchment, but this time it isn't someone else writing. It's you. Your hand. Your words. You're writing the end of a story you never chose. And for the first time, the ink doesn't smudge.
It stays. It sticks. It belongs. Sleep now. There is time still, but less than there was. And the truth is already awake.
The fog hasn't lifted in 3 days. It clings to the fields like guilt, heavy and slow. You move through it each morning, bucket in hand, shawl over your head, as if stepping through the breath of something old and watchful. No one says it aloud, but the village is different now. The noble may have left, but the silence he brought remains, thick as wool, sharp as glass. Every neighbor's glance is half a question. Every footstep feels too loud. You haven't told anyone about the letter. Not your husband, not the priest, not even your daughter, who watches you with that knowing tilt of her head. You wonder if she feels it too, that something is already leaving. You gather more than you need that week. Extra barley, extra salt. You say it's for the cold spell. Everyone believes you because it's easier to ask what you're really planning. You tuck away a second shawl, a spare dress, dried meat wrapped in wax cloth. You hide it beneath the straw near the hearth, where no one cleans but you. Every night, before sleep, you check the bundle, not to count, just to remind yourself you can still go. But then someone else does. It starts with the miller's son. He's 17, broad-shouldered, quiet. He helps his father grind the grain and keeps to himself. His only sin is being old enough to fight and young enough to be noticed. One morning, he's gone. The family says he left early to hunt, but the dogs were left behind, his boots too. There's no note, no word, only a blanket missing from the loft, and the silence that follows it. You hear the news from the baker's daughter. She says it's soft, like she's afraid the words might spread wrong. They say he ran, north or maybe west, somewhere with trees. You nod, even though it doesn't make sense. He had no reason to leave, unless he knew something, unless someone warned him, unless he read the same kind of letter you did. That night, your husband returns home later than usual. His hands are scratched. His coat smells of moss and sweat. You ask nothing, but when he sits by the fire, he finally speaks. He's gone. You nod. I heard. He stares into the flames. They'll ask questions. You don't answer, because he isn't really talking to you. He's talking to the air, to the past, to the part of himself that's still hiding under a name that doesn't belong to him. You watch him carefully. You wonder what else he knows. You wonder if he helped the boy leave, or if he's planning the same. Later, when the fire dies and the children sleep, you sit alone with your bundle in your lap. You open it, check the contents, then fold it again, tighter than before. You move it from under the straw to a gap in the wall behind the water basin, someplace even quieter, someplace no one will stumble upon by accident. The next morning, your daughter catches you staring at the road. She doesn't ask why. She just takes your hand, holds it for a breath too long, then lets go. And just like that, you realize she knows you're going. Maybe not when, maybe not where, but she knows, because she sees you more than anyone ever has. The day passes. Work gets done. Chores repeat. The pigs grunt. The sky stays gray. And through it all, you feel that same pull beneath your ribs, the same word that's been building in your mouth for weeks. Go. But you don't. Not yet. Because the miller's son is still gone, and no one's said his name, not in warning, not in grief, not in anger, just silence, like he's already been erased. You sit by the fire and think of your own name, the one your mother whispered when she braided your hair, the one your sister used when you still believed in beginnings. You wonder if it's still yours, or if this place has worn it down to nothing. Sleep comes slowly, and in your dream, you see the miller's son, not as he was, but older, standing in a forest, hands calloused, eyes calm. He doesn't speak. He just nods, like someone who made a choice and lived. You wake before light, and you know it's almost time. Not because the weather changed, not because someone told you, but because something inside you finally stopped waiting for permission. Sleep now. Tomorrow may ask more of you. But for now, you are still here. And that is almost enough.
You don't mark a date. There is no line in the dirt, no circle on the calendar you don't own. No feast, no omen, no sign from God. But you feel it. The time is coming, like rain before it falls, thick in the air, heavy in your chest. You still haven't told him. You won't. Some truths can't be spoken out loud. They bend when said, curl up like burned paper, become something else. So instead, you prepare, not with words, with acts. The chickens are fed earlier. You pack the food tighter into the clay pots. You tuck more cloth into your daughter's bag, but casually, as if straightening it. You clean your boots again. That's what it looks like to others. But you're checking the seams, the worn leather, the weak places. If you're walking away from this life, you'll need shoes that can carry the weight. You still cook his meals. You still answer his questions. You still sleep beside him, shoulder to shoulder, two quiet bodies pretending at peace. But something in you has gone still. Not cold, just decided. And he can feel it. You see it in the way he watches you now, longer, slower. He knows something's changed, but not what. Your daughter starts to help more, without asking. She brings water in the mornings, sweeps the ashes before you do, keeps her voice soft. She doesn't ask questions either, but her eyes follow you, and you understand what she's waiting for. Not your voice, not your plan, just your hand. One night you sit with her by the fire. The boys are asleep. Your husband has gone to speak with the blacksmith, or so he says. The coals glow red and patient. You take her hands in yours. She's nearly a woman now. Her fingers are slim, her nails bitten short. You don't speak, you just press your forehead to hers, the way your mother used to do when the storms came. She doesn't cry. She just breathes. And you know, she's ready to follow. The next day, you sew. Not anything new, just repairs. Stitches in the hem of her tunic, reinforced seams in your shawl, a patch inside your satchel, hidden beneath the flap. You gather things as if preparing for a long winter, and in some ways you are. You're preparing for a kind of cold that doesn't live in the weather, the kind that comes when you walk away from everything you've known. You visit the chapel too, not to confess, but to sit, on the far bench, where the draft comes in through the stones. You don't pray, not really, but you speak in your head, as if someone might be listening. If we leave, let it be quiet.
If we stay, let it be quick. If I am wrong, forgive me later. You don't say goodbye to the house. Not yet. But when you sweep the floor that night, you move slower, as if memorizing its pattern under your feet. The grooves by the hearth, the uneven rise by the door, the corner where water always pools. You know this house better than you know yourself. But that's not love. That's just repetition. Your husband returns late again. His face is wind-burned, his fingers stained. He smells of smoke and iron. You hand him bread. He eats it standing. No words. Then, as he turns to go, he pauses and says, "You're different." Not a question, just a statement. You don't deny it. You just say, "So are you." That night, sleep does not come easily. Your daughter's breathing slows beside you, steady as ever. Your husband mumbles once in his sleep, a name, not yours. You lie awake and stare into the dark. And you ask yourself, what do I owe this place? What do I owe this man? What do I owe myself? And the answer comes soft, not in words, just in the way your hands don't shake anymore. You rise before dawn, slip the bundle from the wall, check it again, silently. Everything is there. You add a folded note, not a farewell, just a truth. We're not lost, we just left. Then you cover it again, set the basin back, stand up, and exhale. Sleep now. There's no rush, but there's no doubt either. You're leaving. Not loudly, not dramatically, just as you've always done everything, quietly, completely, and on your own terms.
The moon is low tonight, not bright, not silver, just pale and patient, watching the earth the way a grandmother watches a child pretending to sleep. You sit by the hearth one last time, your hands resting in your lap, not moving. The fire has died down to glowing bones. It does not need tending, neither do you. Your daughter stands at the edge of the room, pack over her shoulder, boots laced tight. Her braid is too neat, her jaw set too firm. She's trying not to shake. You don't tell her it's okay. You don't need to. She knows. Because this time, she's not following. She's walking beside you. The baby's asleep. So is your son. You kissed both of them gently, left nothing behind but breath, not even tears. If you let them see sadness, they'll hold it. So you gave them calm, a lie before. Beyond that, there's only trust, and dirt, and silence. Your husband hasn't returned, or maybe he has, and left again. You've stopped watching for the sound of his boots. They don't belong to you anymore. They never did. You take one last look at the table, at the cracked bowl, the worn bench, the place you sat after your second miscarriage, staring at a spoon, pretending to eat. You don't feel anger or grief, only a soft dullness, like walking barefoot on old snow. You and your daughter step outside. The air is crisp, wet around the edges. A fog clings to the fence posts and the low parts of the path. Somewhere, a dog whines, muffled by distance. You don't speak. Your steps are quiet, rehearsed. Each boot print a farewell pressed into mud. You pass the well, the oak, the old man's fence, all still there, but none of them keep you. It isn't until you reach the bend in the road that you hear it, a voice, low, not sharp, just enough to stop you. Going somewhere? You turn. He's leaning against the edge of a tree, not your husband, the priest's sister.
the one with the limp and the eyes too sharp for her own good. Only tonight she looks different, straighter, awake. She steps forward slowly. "I thought you might," she says. You say nothing. Your daughter grips your arm, but lightly. The woman nods at the road behind you. North is clear, south is watched. You blink. Why tell me? She shrugs. I left once, long ago. Didn't get far, came back with less than I left with. Her eyes settle on your daughter. Make sure you come back with more. She hands you something, a wrapped bundle, no bigger than your hand, heavy. Food and dried root helps with pain. You nod. She doesn't ask what kind of pain. She just knows there will be some. Then she turns and walks away. No blessing, no warning, just that same limp fading into the mist. You and your daughter move again, faster now. The path opens into trees, not a forest, just enough trees to hide the road from the village. You breathe slower. The weight in your chest eases, not because you're safe, but because you're moving. And that, for the first time in years, feels like a kind of safety. You walk through the night, the moon behind you, the house behind you, even your name, maybe, behind you. Your daughter doesn't speak until the sky begins to gray. "What now?" she whispers. You pause. Feel the ache in your knees, the rub of cloth against your shoulder. You say, "We walk." She nods and keeps walking. That's all you have, really. A direction. Not a destination. Not yet. Just a promise you made to yourself. A whispered thing, said when no one else was listening. You said, "I will not die in silence." And now, you're making it true. Later, you find a place beneath a tree. You sit, share the root from the woman's pouch. Chew slowly, bitter but calming. Your daughter leans against you. You run your fingers through her braid. Undo it gently, re-braid it again. Not tighter, just neater. The way your mother did once, when you were brave and small. You rest your head back against the bark. The birds begin to call. A new day begins, and for the first time, it isn't borrowed. It's yours. Sleep now. The road is long, but it's yours too, and you are not forgotten. Not anymore.
By the second day, your feet are raw, the left one more than the right, always the left. You try to step softer, lean your weight away from the pain, but the road doesn't care. You don't speak of it to your daughter. She notices anyway. You see it in how she adjusts her pace, pretends to tie her boot when you need to rest, hums softly at night to make your silence feel like music instead of pain. You've walked merely 2 days, 4 rivers crossed, 1 deer sighted. No one followed. You know you should feel safe. Instead, you feel emptied, as if everything that once held you in place, the walls, the work, even the fear, has slipped off your back, leaving only bone and breath. It's midday when you see the village. You don't expect it, it just appears. Low to the earth, gray roofs, smoke rising from small chimneys like threads pulling at the sky. There are no banners, no soldiers, just the quiet hum of another place where life moves by muscle and habit. You stop at the edge of the trees. Your daughter looks at you. You nod. You walk in together. No one stops you.
That's the first surprise. No one asks your name. That's the second. No stares, no pointed glances, just a boy leading goats, a woman with onions in her shawl, a man splitting kindling without looking up. It's not welcome, exactly. It's indifference. And for now, that feels kinder than kindness. You pass a cart, piled with rags, a pair of old boots, a copper bowl with a dent in the rim. You pause there. The man behind the cart looks at you, then at your daughter, then back at you. He doesn't smile, but he says, "You need bread." You nod. He breaks a piece from the loaf in his coat, holds it out. No cost, no weight of charity in his eyes, just transaction. The way the world should be. Clean, quick, simple. You nod again. "Thank you." He says, "People come through here," then shrugs, like that's all the explanations needed. You find a corner by the well and sit. Your daughter eats quietly. You chew slowly, letting the crust soften on your tongue. You close your eyes for a moment. And for the first time since you left, you feel something close to warmth. Not from the sun, not from food, just from the fact that no one is looking too hard. Later, you ask an older woman where you might stay. She leads you to a hut near the edge of the settlement. Vacant. Straw still in the corner. Cracked door, but no leaks. You offer to trade. Help with washing, stitching, herb gathering. She nods. Doesn't ask where you came from. Doesn't ask why you left. Just says, "Work is work," then walks off. That night you sleep on a straw mat beside your daughter. No husband's breath beside you. No baby's cry. Just the two of you, back to back. A fire in a pit. The smell of ash and wool. You whisper, "We'll stay 2 nights, no more." Your daughter murmurs, "Okay." But you both know it might be 3, might be longer. Because stillness feels like rest now. Not a trap. In your dream, the road calls you again, but this time you don't walk it. You just stand. And behind you, voices rise, familiar ones, faces from the village you left, eyes full of blame or longing, and your voice, your own voice, says only, "I was never yours to keep." You wake to the sound of chickens, new ones, not yours, but they still sound the same. Some things, it seems, never change, and maybe that's a comfort. You spend the next day gathering water, helping an older man wrap his foot. He says he stepped on a nail. You don't ask how. You just clean the wound, pack it with crushed nettle, wrap it firm. He winces, but when you finish, he says, "You've done this before." You nod. He doesn't ask for details, doesn't offer them either. He just says, "You'll do fine here if you want." But you don't want. Not really. Not yet. Wanting feels dangerous. So instead, you stay. But with your boots by the door. And your bag always within reach. That night your daughter asks, "Will we always be moving?" You don't answer right away. Then, "Only until we stop." She nods. Accepts it. Children do that. They carry the world's weight in their pockets without complaint. Sleep now. This place won't ask for your past, but it won't protect your future either. That part is still yours to shape. Step by step, silently, strongly.
You leave before dawn. No fire, no goodbye. Just the rustle of cloth, the soft creak of the door, and 2 pairs of footsteps moving through dew-wet grass. You don't look back. You did the first time. This time, you know better. Looking back only makes leaving harder. And this time, you are not fleeing. You are continuing. That's different. That matters. The road is narrow here, lined with low brush and stone fences worn down by wind and disuse. A fox crosses your path early, small, silent, almost curious. Your daughter smiles. You don't. Because you've seen what happens when the wild things stop being afraid. You walk without speaking for hours. Your bag pulls at your shoulder. Your boots bite at your heel. But your feet do not falter. They know what to do now. They are calloused with memory. You pass 2 farms, one abandoned, one too quiet. You do not stop at either. There is no welcome for people like you, those who arrive without story, who stay just long enough to make others uncomfortable. So you walk, and walk, and walk, until your legs shake from the stillness you've left behind. By midday, you reach a small rise in the land. From there, you see the river, wide, unhurried, like something that no longer pretends to be useful. You sit beneath a tree with twisted roots and unpacked bread, cheese, a boiled egg wrapped in linen. Your daughter eats slowly. She doesn't ask where you're going. She hasn't in days, because she knows. You aren't going to anything. You're just going away. The sky turns sallow as the day fades, gray clouds forming like bruises over the horizon. You'll need shelter. You find it in the form of a broken barn just off the path, half-roofed, still dry beneath. You step inside. The scent of straw and wet wood fills your lungs. You breathe it in. It smells like old sleep. You build a small fire. Your daughter lays her head in your lap. She doesn't speak. You brush a leaf from her hair. And then you hear it. A sound outside. Just once. A crunch. Boot on soil. You freeze. You whisper, "Stay." She obeys. You stand, step to the door, and see. No one. Only wind, only branches, only your own heartbeat. But you know better. You've lived too long to believe in coincidence. You return to her. She's watching. You sit, wait. The fire dies low. And still, you wait. Nothing comes, but that doesn't mean nothing is there. In the morning, you rise with the birds. You don't speak of the noise, but you walk faster, and she follows without asking why. You pass through a narrow valley. The cliffs rise around you like sleeping giants, hunched and frowning. Your footsteps echo, and for a moment you hear more than 2. You stop. She stops. You turn. Nothing. Still, but that doesn't mean alone. That night, you camp under a rock outcrop. You dig a shallow trench for the fire, bank it with stones. Your daughter dreams early. You do not. You sit awake, knife in your lap. Not because you'll use it, but because you remember what it means to be hunted. And finally, on the 4th night, you see him. The man. The watcher. Not the same one as before. Taller. Younger. Less tired. He doesn't approach. Just stands. Far enough not to threaten. Close enough to say, "I could." You rise slowly. Step between him and your daughter. You say nothing. Neither does he. But then he lifts a hand, points, north, then disappears. You stand there long after he's gone,
breath shallow, heart slow. You wonder what he meant. Warning? Permission? A path? You don't know. You may never know. But the message is clear. You've been seen. Again. Sleep comes in fragments. You wake with a sore neck and the bitter taste of being remembered. And still, you walk. Because the road is your only answer now. And it doesn't ask questions. It just takes you forward, 1 foot at a time. The trees thin. The wind shifts. The ground dries. And the road keeps whispering your name. Not the one you gave away, the one you buried, the one no one but you remembers. Sleep now. There's more path ahead, but tonight you earned rest. Not because you are safe, but because you are still walking.
The man does not speak again, not for 2 days, but he stays visible, in the corners of the road, outside the weavers, beside the pen where goats shuffle and sniff the air like they too know something is wrong. You go about your work. You clean fish with cold hands, stitch worn gloves, tie bundles of mint and sage for the woman who gave you shelter. But even as your fingers move, your thoughts are not with them. They're with him, the man who watches and waits. You see the way others treat him, not like a stranger, but not like kin. Something between. They greet him with nods, but no smiles. They take what he offers, but give little in return. He has a bed, but not a home. A voice, but no one who listens long. That's the kind of man who's dangerous. Not because he's evil, because he's invisible. And invisible men have no one to answer to. You speak to no one about it, not even your daughter. But you start sleeping lighter, moving quieter. And when you leave the hut each morning, you take your bag with you. On the 5th evening, he speaks again. He's waiting near the well, seated on the stone edge, a stalk of straw between his teeth. You see him before he speaks. You think about walking the other way, but you don't, because if you run from questions, they follow. He doesn't look up when he says it, just, "Your husband wore a scar under his right eye." You stop, cold. He finally looks at you. He had a limp, favors his left. The straw twitches in his mouth. And he carried a blade with a cracked hilt, wrapped in blue thread. You say nothing, not out loud, but inside your blood starts moving differently, like it remembers something you tried to forget. He says, "I served under Reinhard of Harrogate." You blink. That name, not one spoken in the village, not for years. Not even in whispers. It belonged to another world, a world of war and fire and loss you never named aloud. You step forward, slowly. "What do you want?" He shrugs. "Same thing you do." Silence. And then, soft, a life. You study him. The lines around his eyes, the way he speaks not like a soldier, but like someone who used to be one. He says, "I followed him once." Not you, him, your husband. I was his second. You blink, and remember the stories you were never told, the ones behind your husband's scars, his silences, his nightmares, the ones you slept beside but never knew. "I didn't know he lived," the man says. "Not until I saw your eyes." You feel the ground shift,
just slightly, not from fear, from memory. Because once your husband called you by another name. Only once. A name you buried under dishes and birth and mud. But this man, he knows it. He says, I'm not here for him. He looks past you, toward the hut, toward your daughter. I'm here for what he left behind. Your body tenses. You move between him and the path. He raises a hand. No harm. Then, but if he's alive, they'll come. Not now, but eventually. You say, we left that behind. He nods. Maybe. But it doesn't always stay behind. He stands, brushes dust from his coat, says, you should leave before the snow. Then pauses, looks at you one last time, and adds, I won't follow. You watch him walk away, his gait familiar, his weight forward. A soldier's body still, but not a soldier's eyes. You return to the hut. Your daughter sits by the hearth, combing her hair. She looks up, sees your face, says nothing, just sets the comb down and begins to pack. No words, no need. She knows. She's always known. You add more to the bundle. Not much. Just enough to remind yourself you'll need to make it further this time. Beyond the edge of war. Beyond the reach of names. Beyond the watchers who carry your past in their eyes. That night, you lie beside her. Neither of you sleep. Not fully. But your breath stays steady, and your hands stay warm. And the road waits. Sleep now. He won't follow, but memory will. And you're ready for that too.
The wind carries salt now. It clings to your hair, your skin, your tongue. You know this smell. It's the sea, faint, far off, but steady. It tells you that you are near. Not the end of the road, just one of its resting places. You pass a cart stuck in mud. The driver curses under his breath, too tired to ask who you are. You keep walking. You and your daughter haven't spoken in hours. You don't need to. Her silence matches yours now, not fearful, just practiced. Two women walking a road that doesn't ask them where they came from, only where they'll stop. You reach the ridge by late afternoon. Beyond it, the land slopes toward the coast, the trees thinning like a breath slowly exhaled. The village is smaller than you remembered. Or maybe you grew. That's what happens when you carry too much. Even small things look smaller. Your daughter points to the rooftops. She whispers, "Is that it?" You nod, but your stomach turns. Because returning is not relief. Returning is accounting. You left her years ago, not cruelly, not without cause. But leaving is always a wound, even when it's necessary. And you were the one holding the knife. The village is quiet, not dead, just hushed. Fishermen haul nets near the shore. Smoke rises from 3 chimneys. A dog barks once, then stops. No one greets you, but no one turns you away. That's the best you can ask for.
Her house is near the edge. Not grand, but well kept. Clean shutters. A green door. You pause. Touch the gate. Wood. Familiar. Rough as your hands. You knock once. Then again. You hear movement inside. And then her voice. When the door opens, she stares at you. No words. Not at first. Just eyes. Older, darker, but still hers. And slowly, without expression, she steps aside. You enter. The room smells of soap and dried thyme. There's a fire in the hearth, a stool beside it, a spinning wheel in the corner. Her husband isn't home. That's the first grace of the day. You stand. She watches. Then, finally, you walked. A statement, not a question. You nod. I had to, you say. She says, I know. You sit. Your daughter stands beside you, wary but quiet. Your sister glances at her. Is she his? You nod. She's yours too now, you say. It's not a request, not an apology, just the truth, spoken like bread handed across a table. And your sister, she receives it. She brings broth, warm, thin but seasoned, the kind that says, I didn't expect you, but I'll feed you anyway. You eat slowly. You say little. She says less. But you see her glance at your pack, at your boots, at your daughter's face. She is measuring, not judging, just counting the distance and realizing it's not as far as she thought. When your daughter sleeps beside the hearth that night, your sister finally speaks again. She pours tea, sits beside you, and says softly, He's dead, isn't he? You pause, then say, No. She looks at you, eyes steady, and that's all the answer she needs. You tell her some of it, not everything, just enough. The raids, the watching, the way the road has eyes. You don't speak of the armor or the name buried beneath the oak tree, but she wouldn't ask even if she wanted to. She knows the shape of grief better than most, and she knows better than to sharpen it. She says, You can stay. Not kindly, not coldly, just practically. There's room in the shed. You nod. That's enough. You sleep on hay that night. Soft. Dry. Your daughter curls beside you. You listen to her breathing. You remember when she was small enough to carry. Now she carries you. In the dark, you whisper, I'm sorry. But she's already asleep, and the wind outside drowns you out. In the morning, you wash with seawater. It stings your fingers, your cheeks. It leaves salt in your hair.
And for the first time in weeks, you let it stay. You wear it like a badge, a reminder that you made it here, and that here you are not running. Your sister hands you a comb. You sit. She brushes your hair, and neither of you speaks of what was lost, only of what's left. And sometimes that's enough. Sleep now. You made it to the next shore, and the past will not find you tonight. It will wait. But for now, you are not alone.
The days stretch now, not in suffering, just in sameness. Morning comes, the sea fog lifts. Your hands find the same rope-handled broom, the same water basin, the same set of chores in the same quiet rhythm. It's not your home, but it's not foreign either. And that in-between feeling is harder than fear, because you don't know if you're resting or just waiting again. Your sister gives you work. She doesn't say it kindly. She doesn't say it coldly. She just hands you the basket and says, "Laundry." Then a pot of mash and says, "For the hens." Then a scrap of parchment and says, "Read this to me." She's testing how much you still remember, how much you've hidden, how much of yourself you left behind. You pass every test, but you don't look her in the eye. Your daughter adjusts faster than you. She learns the names of the chickens, follows your sister's husband when he walks the garden rows, watches how the fishermen mend nets and tie knots. You see it happen quietly, how her shoulders drop, how her voice rises, how she laughs again, just a little. Not the laugh of the girl who fled a house in the dark, the laugh of someone becoming herself. You feel both relief and loss, because every time she grows here, she grows away from what she shared with you. That long stretch of silence, that thread of fear, that knowing glance that meant we are all we have. Now she has others, and part of you is glad, but part of you whispers, she won't need you forever, and you don't know what you'll be when she doesn't. The nights are the hardest, not for what they hold, but for what they don't. No firelight dance across the beams, no shape in the dark you fear might rise in anger. No cry from the baby, no cough from the next room. Just nothing. You sit by the shore some evenings, watching the tide move in and out. It's always moving, but never going anywhere. You wonder if that's what you've become. Your sister joins you once, just once, brings 2 mugs of thin ale, sits without speaking, then says, "She's strong." You nod. She had to be. She doesn't have to be anymore. You look down, fingers tightening around the mug, and your sister adds, "Neither do you." You say nothing, because you don't believe it yet. One morning, a boy from the next village brings a note. Simple, faded. A trader is asking for wool. Your sister asks you to write the reply. You dip the quill, form the letters slowly, and realize your hand is steady. You haven't written in years, but the motion comes back. Not like memory, like muscle, like truth. Later that week, a man from the hills brings a sack of barley and a sack of stories. "He's seen your face before," he says. "On the coast, in the north, maybe in a garrison camp years ago." You shrug.
You must be mistaken. He nods once, too quickly. And you know, the past isn't gone, just hiding. Same as you. But for now, it stays quiet. And so do you. Your daughter begins asking different questions. Not, when do we leave? Not, will they find us? She asks, what did you love before? Before him. Before then. Before you became the mother who walked away. You don't know how to answer. So you say, reading, song, running. She smiles. Will you do any of those again? You stare at her and feel the distance between who you were and who you've become. Then say, maybe, and mean it. Sleep is easier now. Not always gentle, but not sharp. You dream of water, of fires that go out on their own, of a voice in the dark that says, you can stay. And sometimes you believe it. But belief is fragile, and morning is coming. And not every secret stays buried by the shore. Sleep now. Let your daughter dream without fear. Let your hands rest without guilt. And let the stillness become something other than silence.
It's a warm morning. The kind of morning that almost makes you believe in safety. The sea air is soft, your sister hums as she pulls herbs from the garden, and your daughter sleeps an hour past sunrise for the first time in weeks. You take your tea outside. No shoes, no shawl, just your hands around the cup and your back against the worn wall of the house. It feels normal. Too normal. And normal always makes you uneasy. The traveler comes at midday. You don't see him arrive. You hear the dog bark once, then fall silent. That's how you know he's not a stranger. Not to the dog, not to the path, not to you. Your sister calls from the door, someone asking after you. Your breath holds, then releases. You wipe your hands, set down your needle, and step into the sun. He stands by the gate, dust on his boots, shoulders square. Not young, not old, worn but alert. You've seen too many men like him to pretend you don't know what he is. Messenger, but not just any. One who chooses what to carry and what to leave behind. You step closer. He tips his head. Not a bow, not exactly, just acknowledgement. You're her, he says. Not a question. You nod. You were called, he begins, then stops, because he sees it, the shift in your shoulders, the quiet behind your eyes, and he knows that whatever name you once had, you're not offering it now. He changes the subject. A woman back in Windmere sent me, said you'd left something behind. Windmere. You haven't heard that name in seasons. The village where you buried your first son, where you nearly died in childbirth, where you learned to carry water with a broken wrist because he'd told you not to drop the bucket. That Windmere. You say, I took everything I needed. He nods slowly. That's what I told her. He reaches into his coat, pulls out a scrap of parchment. No seal, no address, just a line of careful writing in a hand you recognize. Your husband's, the real husband,
The one who is not a man, but a shadow. The one who gave you children and bruises and silence. The message is short. 2 sentences. Not cruel, but not kind. If you read this, you're not dead. That's more than I hoped for. I'll stop looking now. You stand still for a long time. The wind moves your hair across your face, but you don't brush it away. You just stare at those words. 2 sentences. And suddenly, you feel 17 again. Pregnant, hungry, hopeful in the wrong direction. You fold the note, put it in your apron. Not your bag, not the fire, not yet. The man watches, waits. You say, "Is he still there?" He says, "Not for long." You nod. That's good. Your daughter steps outside, sees the man, sees your face. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. She steps beside you and puts her hand in yours. The man nods again, more to her than to you, then turns, walks away. No name exchanged, no farewell. Just dust rising from his boots, and a silence that doesn't sting the way it used to. That night, you tell your sister. You read her the letter aloud. She doesn't respond at first. Then she says, "Do you believe him?" You think. Then, yes. Then, after a pause, "But I don't think it matters." She nods, pours wine. You both drink. And for the first time, you feel the space inside your chest begin to shift. Not fill, just move. Your daughter sleeps soundly. The stars are clear, and the night holds you gently. Because the man who once made you small has finally stopped looking, and that means you can finally begin to see yourself. Sleep now. No one is watching. Not tonight. Not anymore.
No one follows anymore. There's no more hiding, no more bundles tucked behind walls, no more half-slept nights with boots beside your bed, waiting for the knock that never came. He stopped looking. You know it in your bones now. He meant it. And so, for the first time in years, you ask yourself, what do I do with all this quiet? Your days find rhythm again, but not survival rhythm, real rhythm. You wake early, not from fear, but from habit. You scrub the pans before anyone asks. You braid your daughter's hair slowly now, not like armor, but like comfort. You mend with better stitches. Your hands no longer shake. You no longer count your steps toward the door, because the door is just a door, not an escape. Your sister asks you to take over the dye pots. She says her hands ache. You know they don't, but you take the task without comment. You crush the petals, soak the wool, stir slow circles in water the color of violets, of blood, of sky just before rain. Your daughter watches. She learns quickly. You realize you're teaching without meaning to, and that's what mothers are meant to do. At night, she reads aloud now. She stumbles on certain words, skips the ones she doesn't know, but she tries. She wants to know. You never taught her that. The wanting. She brought that with her. You just made it quiet enough for her to hear it. Your sister's husband is kinder now, or maybe just used to you. He brings home salt when the barrels are low. He sharpens your blade without being asked. Once you catch him smiling as your daughter sings. You look away.
because you're not ready to believe in safe men. Not yet. Maybe not ever. One evening, your sister sits with you by the shore. You both hold mugs of cider. She says, "You can stay." You say nothing. She adds, "Or you can go." Still you say nothing. Then she looks at you and says the truest thing anyone ever has, but you have to decide. The words strike like soft thunder, because they're not about moving, they're about becoming. You ran to survive, but now you must choose whether to live. You lie awake that night, not afraid, just empty. Because when you remove the fear, what's left? Who are you without the hiding, without the running, without the silence that protected you? You watch your daughter sleep. You count the curve of her cheek, the curl of her fingers, the soft breath at her lips. She is already becoming someone you do not know yet, and you will not stop her. You will not pass down the weight you carried. You will give her space, even if you don't know what to do with yours. The next morning, you walk to the edge of the village, just to walk. Your feet know the path now. The wind knows your face. You sit under the alder tree with the gnarled trunk and the moss-soft roots. You close your eyes, and you let the silence come. Not the kind that held danger, the kind that makes room. And in that silence, you whisper your name. The real one, the one you buried. You say it aloud, just once, just for you. And the trees do not flinch. The earth does not turn away. The wind does not carry it to your enemies. It stays. You open your eyes, breathe, and feel something unfasten inside you, something long locked. That night, you take out your daughter's dress, the one she's outgrown. You let out the hem, add a new cuff, bright thread, not just sturdy, pretty, because she is allowed to be more than useful now. She is allowed to be seen, and so are you. Sleep now. You are no longer being hunted. You are being held by land, by light, by a life you are finally learning to choose, not because it was safe, but because you earned it.
The season begins to turn. The sea loses its warmth. The air takes on that heavy, waiting stillness that means winter will arrive soon. Not suddenly, but gradually, like someone who's been standing at your door for days without knocking. You notice the change in your bones first, in your hands especially. They ache in the morning now, but not from wounds, just from time. And time, at last, is something you're learning how to carry. Your daughter gathers apples for the first time. She fills the basket with the careful pride of someone who once had nothing. She holds each one like it matters. You watch her from the porch. You smile without meaning to, because she is becoming, and you are here to see it. In the evenings, the fire feels warmer, not because it's bigger, but because you sit closer to it now. You don't keep a bag by the door anymore. You moved it 2 weeks ago, folded its contents, put them in a chest. Not hidden, just set down. You can still take it with you, but it no longer has to be packed, and that difference feels like freedom. You don't speak of the man who stopped looking, or the soldier who once followed, or the village you left behind. You don't need to. Your daughter has stopped asking. She no longer needs the shape of the danger. She's living in the absence of it, and that is enough. One day she asks to go to the next village, alone.
to trade, to deliver a message. You pause, then say, yes. Not easily, not quickly, but you say it. She smiles, grabs her shawl, and just before she leaves, she hugs you. Not like a child, but like someone who knows how hard it is to let go. You watch her walk down the road, straight-backed, steady. You do not follow. You do not wait at the fence. You return inside. You stir the soup. You light the fire. You set 2 bowls. And she comes back. Later than expected, but smiling. Safe. And in that moment you realize the road no longer frightens you, because now she walks it, and she does not walk in fear. Your sister asks if you'll stay through winter. You nod, then say, maybe longer. You don't say forever. You've learned better to make promises to time. But you say longer, and that's enough. You return to the habit of reading at night. Not aloud, not to teach, just to feel words again. You open a worn book and run your finger beneath each line. You mouth the words softly. Some of them taste strange, others feel like breath you forgot to take. Sometimes you write, too. Not often, not with purpose, just lines, snippets, half memories, the sound of boots in the night, the smell of ash on your skin, a name that no longer fits. You do not write for anyone, and that's what makes it yours. Your daughter begins wearing blue again. She asks if she can grow her hair long. You say yes. She asks why you always wear gray. You don't answer. She doesn't push. But that night she lays a folded scarf beside your bed. Blue. Soft. And you wear it the next morning. Just for her. Just for that. You sit by the sea sometimes. Not to watch. Just to listen. The waves don't speak your name. They never did. But you do. You whisper it once, and the sea does not take it from you. It leaves it there, right where you placed it. There is no grand ending, no letter of pardon, no reunion, no justice. But there is this. You are not hiding. You are not running. You are not afraid. And in a life built from silence, that is everything. You stir the soup again. You mend a torn sleeve. You hold your daughter's face in your hands and see the life she will have, and the one you never did. And you do not ache. You are glad, because this was the point. This was the cost. This was the reason. You are not a saint, not a heroine, not a name carved into stone. But you survived. You endured. You chose silence, and then chose to break it. Sleep now. This is the ending. Not loud, not bright, just warm, and slow, and yours. You were not erased. You were not forgotten.